All right, today we are diving into a story that has captured imaginations for centuries. It's the legend of Yajuj and Majuj, or as you might know them, Gog and Magog. You know, the classic tale: monsters, a hero king, a giant wall holding back the end of the world. But what if there's a whole lot more to it? Here's the big question that changes everything. What if this epic story isn't actually a prophecy about some future apocalypse? What if, hidden right there in the original language, there's a timeless blueprint for how we deal with chaos, one that is incredibly relevant to us right now? Let's dig in. So, first things first, let's just do a quick recap of the story that most of us have probably heard before, the one everyone thinks they know. Okay, so in the traditional telling, Yajuj and Majuj are these monstrous, destructive tribes, barely even human. They get locked away behind this massive physical wall by a legendary king, Dhul-Qarnayn. And the prophecy is that one day, near the end of time, they're going to break free, swarm across the entire planet, and basically bring about the end of days. It's a literal story with a very real and, let's be honest, pretty terrifying ending. But what if we go back to the source text? What happens when we actually look at the original Arabic words used in the Quran? Well, as you're about to see, a completely different and frankly more interesting picture starts to emerge. Now, pay really close attention to this verse. When the people in the story are describing Yajuj and Majuj, they don't call them monsters. They don't even call them invaders. They use a very specific Arabic word, mufsidun. And this is the key. It means corruptors, those who spread something called Fasad, which is basically systemic decay and disorder. It's more of a job description than a race of people. And it gets even more fascinating when you look at their names. Yajuj and Majuj both come from the Arabic root aj-ja. Now, this root isn't about a person, it describes a state of being. Think of a raging, roaring fire, or water that's so agitated and bitter you can't drink it. So their very names describe a force of burning, chaotic consumption. And our hero, Dhul-Qarnayn, well, his name often gets mistranslated as the one with two horns, which, makes you picture some kind of Viking helmet king. But the root QRN isn't about horns, it's about connections. It really means something like the one of two epochs, or the one who connects two things, a leader who bridges different eras or states of being. Again, it's a role, not a literal physical description. So let's just put all these pieces together. The problem isn't a monster. The problem is Fasad. It's systemic decay. It's what happens when any system, whether it's an ecosystem, an economy, or a society, goes out of balance and just starts to fall apart. And the solution isn't about killing a monster. It's about Islah, which means reform and setting things right again. With these new meanings in mind, the whole story completely changes. It stops being a fantasy tale about monsters, and it turns into this incredibly sophisticated parable about how a truly principled leader confronts systemic corruption head-on. So here is the core idea, the new thesis. Yajuj and Majuj aren't a who, they're a what. They represent the forces of unchecked, burning consumption and chaos, the kind of stuff that just tears a society apart from the inside out. And this is where the leader's genius just shines through. The people are terrified, and what do they ask for? They ask for a sed, which is a simple wall or a barrier. It's an us versus them solution. But Dhul-Qarnayn, he knows that's just a band-aid. That won't work. Instead, he builds a red, a reinforced, multi-layered seal. You see the difference? He doesn't just block the problem, he fills in the gap. He fixes the underlying structural weakness that let the problem in the first place. So what does this whole story teach us about real leadership? It's like a masterclass. First, Dhul-Qarnayn refuses to be paid. His authority is a trust, not some service for hire. Second, he mobilizes the community. He literally says, "Help me with your strength," making them an active part of their own solution. And third, he uses the absolute best technology he has, iron and copper, to build a smart, integrated, lasting solution. So let's just look at these two versions side by side. The traditional view. It gives us literal monsters hiding behind a physical wall somewhere. But this deeper Quranic reading, it shows us forces of burning, consumption, that create systemic instability. The whole story transforms from a fairy tale into this incredibly practical guide on how corruption actually works, and more importantly, how to stop it. But there's one last absolutely crucial piece to this puzzle. After all this incredible work, Dhul-Qarnayn says the barrier is a mercy,
but it won't last forever. One day, God will make it level. Now, that is a profound statement. It means that no human solution, no matter how brilliant, is permanent. It's a temporary mercy, a grace period, reminding us that all of our systems, all of our walls, will eventually face a final test.
So, the big question is, how do we take this ancient wisdom and apply it today? Because this new understanding turns the story from some dusty old prophecy into a really urgent manual for our own times. So here are the core lessons, the big takeaways. First, corruption, or Fasad, isn't some one-time enemy we can defeat. It's a persistent force we always have to manage. Second, true leaders don't rule. They serve and they empower their communities. Third, we all have a role to play. We have to actively participate in protecting our societies. And finally, even our best-laid plans, our strongest walls, are temporary. It's a reminder to stay humble and vigilant. So really the ultimate message is this. The story of Yajuj and Majuj isn't about passively waiting for some monstrous to show up. It's a universal call to action. It's a challenge for us to identify the facade, the systemic rot in our own world, and to work together to build the kind of smart, strong, structural solutions that we need. And so, I'll leave you with this final question. Look around our world today. What are the burning forces of consumption and chaos? What is causing the facade, the systemic decay in our own societies? And, maybe most importantly, are we just asking for simple walls? Or are we really working together to build the kind of intelligent, integrated, lasting barriers that this ancient story is calling for?